Welcome everybody Wednesday night here on the Joe Quills Show. I am that guy Joe Quills, and I think we got a smaller stream here tonight, so um, we'll talk a little bit here, and still keeping an eye on the Phillies game, even though the Phillies are getting their ass kicked 11-4 right now. Because I did the same game parlay, and of course I'm 3 for 4. Typical shit. It's almost like I'm playing the pick four at Gulfstream or Aqueduct or Keeneland or whatever, where I get the first three, but I can't get that fourth one home. So, so, uh, so what I had today, I had, I'm getting hit with an IM there. Um, so, um, so, got a little distracted there. I apologize. Basically, what I do is I put money in my Fanatics account. And by the way, you can always get all the links for all the different um partners we have right now. And for some reason, it's now asking me for my passcode, a one-time passcode. So I decided today to play a game day parlay, and it was a 50% boost. So I went with the Giants money line because Aaron Nola has been shit this year. Bryce Harper hits. He hit a home run, tied the game at 4, gave the Phillies fans hope. Rafael Marchand under half a hit, which basically means he goes hitless, and he's 0 for 4 tonight. He just popped out. But Lamont Wade, the Giants' first baseman, he is 0 for 3 with 2 walks. Now, given the way that the Phillies have been pitching tonight, which has been pretty fucking pathetic, I might get another shot at this. Who knows? We uh, might need to get another 3-4 runs on the board, but um, yeah, we got to, the way this game is, and basically these are one of those games where if you really want to punish your kids and they're a baseball fan, make them watch the first inning of this game because Aaron Nola was wild and was getting hit around a little bit, and then Robbie Ray, I think that's his name, Robbie Ray. Yeah, Robbie Ray. He couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. I mean, that's how wild he was. And granted, you got a real windy night there at the ballpark and everything, and um, just that it was just such um, a tough night. And once again, I'm going to go 3 for 4 in another parlay. I think I had another parlay which was an all hit parlay. I think I'm going to go 3 for 5 for that, but you need all 5. Um, but apparently, Fanatics doesn't have round robins. Because what I was going to do is I was going to play a round robin, 5 choose 3, as I like to call it. My mathematical background from when I was in college, the first go round and everything else. Um, but yeah, I mean, just dumb luck if you ask me. So uh, just just not a good night to be a Philly sports fan. Well, it is good that the Sixers are done. Um, and I have an unbelievable stat that I'm going to share in a moment here because you need to see, if you want to see how bad it was for the Sixers this year, um, I will find it here for you. Um, Let me find it here. Was it on here? Okay, there it is. So I'm going to share this here. This came from Ramon Leone on Facebook, and I just shared it onto my page. But this gives you an idea how bad it was for the Sixers this year, and probably why they should have fired Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse. Where do you see this stat? The Sixers went 24 and 58 on the year. Pretty fucking pathetic, if you ask me. The Eagles won 18 games this year. They went 18 and 3. And after they started off 2 and 1, they were 16 and 1 the rest of the way. So you tell me how bad that season was for the Sixers. Because the Sixers only won 6 more games than the Eagles. That is an amazing stat that, that somebody brought in. Probably Ramon here probably didn't create this graphic, but he shared it, and he's getting credit um, only because of the fact that I found the link. Um, so credit to him for uh, sharing that, even though it's probably some major sports group that made that graphic up. Uh, but Phillies are on their way to a loss here, and the pitcher that's in there now, the guy that they picked up on waivers right before the start of the season, he's apparently going to make sure I don't get my parlay tonight. So, oh well. But going to be a quick show tonight. At least I think so. But next thing you know, I'll be talking here till like 2 in the morning. Um, but we're going to talk a little bit NIL, the whole thing with this Nico Amaliva. I think that's how it's pronounced. An update on Travis Hunter. Um, and I wouldn't totally look totally write off the Braves, even though they had that 0-7 start where. The thing where no MLB team start off 0-7s made the playoffs. Well, with the expanded playoffs that we have now, it's always possible. But we'll get to that as well here because they had one of their key players back today. Um, so about NIL. Now, when this became a thing, I don't think what's going on with a lot of these student athletes, and I'm using finger quotes here because, they're allegedly student athletes. Um, Apparently they just sell themselves to the highest bidder every year. And between NIL and the transfer portal, everything's turned into an epic shit show. Plain and simple. I mean, at least with professional sports, with free agency, most guys you have on your team for at least a couple of years. But, you know, now, even if you don't get to go to a Power Four conference school, you go to, if you're playing basketball, you end up going to Drexel or Penn or whatever. And then you say, hey, did you see me? I scored 25 points. You want me on your team now? Yeah, you want me on your team now, motherfucker. Something like that. But I just feel like sometimes it's just, um, it just seems like, and you could say there's no loyalty in the game anymore, in college anymore. It's no longer about your college degree. Well, most of them probably don't get their, but you know what I mean. It isn't about your school colors. It isn't about going back to your alma mater when your career's over, your college career's over, and you're in the pros or whatever, you're doing all kinds of crazy stuff that will make people wonder. But in a lot of cases, and the way you can do things now, you can basically go 4 years, four different schools if you really wanted to. And the way things are now, it's just like, oh, I'm not getting the starts that I want, or I don't like this coach. He badmouthed me. I'm leaving. Fuck you. Well, Nico Imaliva, I think that's how it's pronounced. We saw everything he did, and he wanted more money from Tennessee, or at least his agency wanted more money from Tennessee, and with some things that Tennessee found out, they said, Nico, you're leaving. And it's just coincidence with the name and all that. And I was watching Pat McAfee this afternoon while I was working. It was like, um, and Kirk Herbstreit was saying that this kid is, one of the nicest, laid back Polynesian kids. It just had to fit the stereotype, if you want to call it a stereotype, that Polynesians are laid back, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. So all of a sudden, he's looking for more money, and as a result, and probably because he was late in the game to get into the transfer portal, he's now seeing that maybe I should have stayed at Tennessee one more year, because he's trying to sell himself, and the market that he's expecting is not what he's getting. And it's almost like Major League Baseball's free agency period, the NFL free agency period. You know, Captain Ron and I joke about the fact that um, Aaron Rodgers is still unsigned, or at least we think he's unsigned. The reason why I say I think, because you never know, he might have signed. He's like, no, you can't talk about it. I need to have my ayahuasca before I come to Pittsburgh to announce it. Or I need to make sure you're not going to get a quarterback in the draft, because I'm much better than those new kids that are coming in, or whatever he might say. But um, the spring transfer portal open, um, and the wait to see where Nico will play is still going on. Um, UCLA is among the schools interested in Amaliba, but not for nearly the money he was asking for from Tennessee. One source said UCLA was content to sit tight while Amaliba considered his options. So, a source told ESPN, the UCLA source said, we'll see if it gets worked out. He's extremely talented with starting experience against elite competition. That's sort of where we are right now. And you know what? With UCLA in the Big Ten, that may get them. I mean, because let's see, what were they last year? Um, Let me pull that up here. UCLA last year was 3-6 and 5-7 overall. Okay, so maybe they get to a sixth win, maybe they get to a seventh win. Who knows? Because you may get a bowl game. We saw last year that if you have three losses, you can get in like Alabama, who had three losses last year? Drawing a blank here now. I gotta look it up. Um, uh, SMU got in with three losses on a as an at large. Um, Clemson had three losses, but they won the conference. So both ACC schools had three losses. Now, UCLA wants to compete in the Big Ten. They're getting the big money from the Big Ten, and they want to compete as well. So, um, so he, I can see why they want to do it, but they're going to say, well, we'll wait a little bit. We'll see. We'll see if he comes to his senses a little bit, and he's not going back to Tennessee, but he's going to need a place to play this year. Sources told ESPN that Nico wanted at least $4 million from Tennessee, and that's what UCLA was prepared to offer him, or what UCLA was prepared to offer wasn't remotely close to that figure. He earned $2.4 million under the contract he signed with Spire Sports Group, the Tennessee-based collective, when he was still in high school. Now, that deal would have paid around $10 million, if you just say 2.4 times 4, had he stayed 4 years at Tennessee. Josh Heupel, the Tennessee head coach, announced on Saturday after the Volunteers spring game that the program was moving forward without him after he missed practice and meetings Friday and didn't alert anybody on the team or return any calls or text messages afterwards. Now, what happened that all this hit the fan? Well, um, well, Heupel thanked Imaliva and called the current situation unfortunate, but he said there's no one bigger than the Power T, and that includes me. The Power T meaning the Tennessee logo. So I think that's the one thing. Even though you're making the money, you you look to you do what you can with what you have. But that's why when it comes to when I expand this podcast down the road or podcast and whatever, and let's say I have a producer, let's say I have this, let's say I have that, let's say that pipe dream that I have where I want to turn it into a poor man's Pat McAfee show. Not necessarily what he does, but it's like, well, all right, well, the 2 hours is up. We're going to continue, but we're going to continue on Twitch, that sort of thing. But um, but the one thing is, and I've said this many times to people, you know, you may have a higher title than me. I mean, like for example, my job at work. I have my position. There's people that are yay further up than me, and then there's management. So everything is slotted in through the collective bargaining and stuff like that. But just in terms of the office setting, for the most part, I consider us all on the same level because we're trying to reach one big goal. So And that's how I feel. Even though I may be the head dictator, that would be my official title. And I might have Mike being whatever, and let's say AJ something, and Stephen Luker's another thing, and somebody else I bring in from off the street is somebody else. You know, even though you technically have those titles, we're all a team, and in a way, those titles in a way don't really matter too much because of the fact that this is what it's all about, being a team. So, and I don't blame Josh Heupel for saying that because at the end of the day, it's just the end. No, seriously. I was going to say at the end of the day, it's just the end of the day, but at the end of the day, you all got to work together. Whether you are the star quarterback or the walk on who's never going to see a play on Tennessee's field, but you're out there every day practicing with the team, making sure they're ready for their game. Everybody plays a part in the team, whether it's more high profile or something that we don't see on Friday or Saturday, depending on when that game is. But now, sources told ESPN Amaliva representatives asked to redo his deal just before the close of the winter portal in December after Tennessee's playoff loss to Ohio State. But his deal was unchanged, and Amaliva did not enter the winter portal. His father, Nick, also wanted Tennessee to surround his son with better receivers and a more effective offensive line and pass protection. Okay, so, but the thing is, you got to remember when you're recruiting from high school to college, if you think about it, some people maybe 3, 4, 5 star recruits, they go belly up. Whereas you may have a 1 star, 2 star player, and next thing you're like, why do we rate him so low? But it's all about the team as well. So, um, what am I? 1 second. Whoops. So, you know, you, you know, it seems like maybe the collective that paid him that 2.4 million, it got into his head, and you're seeing the immaturity of an 18, 19 year old. Um, that may be the case here. Um, Now, this is what probably got Amaliva kicked off the team essentially. Before the start of practice, the spring practice period, Amaliva's representative reached out to Oregon to gauge its interest in the quarterback, but the school said it wasn't interested. Then Oregon, mainly the head coach Dan Lanning, notified Tennessee that Amaliva was being shopped to the Ducks. So I don't know if it was that group that he signed with for 2.4 million. I don't know if it's his father or himself but somebody went to Oregon and said, "Hey, you need a quarterback. This is your guy." Also, because you have the wide receivers, you have the offensive line, except for when you lost to Ohio State 1 million to nothing. But um, so um, so So Imaliva was a 5 star prospect from Long Beach. He was recruited by UCLA. His younger brother, Madden Imaliva, committed to UCLA out of high school, but changed his commitment last minute and signed with Arkansas. Um, Now, this could have a ripple effect if Imaliva ends up at UCLA because the Bruins' current quarterback, Joey Aguilar, has been covering their bases, representatives for him have been covering their bases and making calls to other schools to gauge their interest in Aguiar, who transferred from Appalachian State this offseason and exited spring practice as the UCLA's likely starter. So you're getting all kinds of chaos here right now. And, I just wonder, is NIL really worth it the way that they have it right now? A Power 4 general manager told ESPN this week he thought that Imaliva had zero market and that it would be interesting test to see how smart and disciplined colleges are in looking at him. Imaliva did lead Tennessee to the playoff. I think it's the timing of it that really makes it that he has no market because you're pretty much set with what you want to do this upcoming season. So you don't want to do anything like that. You just want to go and do your thing. So, um, the thing is, NIL wasn't NIL. The one thing that it was for was make all payments on the up and up. It wasn't, $100 handshake as it's called, even though it'd be more than $100, so to speak. It isn't uh, money in a McDonald's bag or anything like that. It was supposed to be, you promote our product, we'll pay you. But somewhere along the lines, it turned into Imaliva getting $2.4 million to play for Tennessee, and other guys doing different things. I don't know about you, but it just seems like it's still the wild, wild west when it comes to NIL right now. And NIL and the transfer portal are making it really frustrating to watch. And with some kids, it's like, you hear, let's say he goes to UCLA. And let's say it wasn't all this BS that's going on. All of a sudden, it's like, wait a second, wasn't he with Tennessee last year? Then you got to look up his name on Google. It's like, oh yeah, he was with Tennessee last year. But we know that everything going on, that controversy and all the drama that was occurring over the last week or two. So it's the thing is, and maybe I'm old school, even though I do sympathize with those that did not have name, image, and likeness or anything like that. The one thing I will say though, a lot of the kids, a lot of the student athletes of yesteryear, they didn't get any money in their pocket, at least legally. Legally meaning the NCAA rules and regulations. But, but think about it. In a way, they were getting paid. And, you can argue this all you want, I mean, in a way, they're still getting paid because many of those student athletes, finger quotes, were getting free room and board, because free tuition, free room and board, because he can throw a football, he can shoot a 3-pointer, he can hit a 3-run homer when we need it. You have these guys who, guys or girls, depending on the sport, that they're bringing eyes to your program and they're helping you recruit another player because guess what? I want to play with him or her. But somewhere along the way, what was planned as, hi, I'm so and so from the University of Kentucky, and I'm here to tell you about the Keeneland breeder sale. And I only bring that up because Keeneland's horse racing meet's going on right now. You know, you want to get a racehorse as a yearling and prepare him for the races, and who knows, maybe you get to go down the street to Louisville, get to run in the Kentucky Derby, and then the next thing you know, your horse is a Triple Crown winner, and then you get to see your horse bang all these mares. Well, guess what? Come on down to Lexington and blah 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 blah, or however they would sell. Because at the very beginning of NIL, I'm watching. I don't know if it was what was then called TVG. It's now FanDuel TV. I don't know if it was TVG. I don't know if it was FS1, FS2, the America's Day, the Racist Day. But the University of Kentucky quarterback did a commercial on the grounds of Keeneland, and he was getting paid by Keeneland. That was probably the intent of NIL, that you get your name, you get your name on these commercials, you get your face on these commercials, and you make money. I mean, in some cases, they do get money for what the intent really was. Oh, I got a shoe coming from Nike this year, or I got a shoe from Adidas, or I got this, I got that, you know. But instead, it's sign this contract, you're going to make 2.4 million a year. That wasn't the intent. But at least everything's on the up and up for the most part. But the problem is you get cases where, oh, I'm going to sell myself to Oregon. Let's see if they want me. Or you have that kid from UNLV. Oh, they didn't pay me this month, so guess what? I'm not coming back. I'm leaving you. I'm in the transfer portal. Fuck you. Everything's so out of control right now that you just wonder, what will it take to get everything under control? But I don't know. But I mean, this could have ripple effects all the way to September or August when the season starts. But it's, and then maybe he doesn't have a team to play in a school to play for this year, and he can't go pro because he's not out of college 3 years. You can make a case with the courts. Hey, but there's other players that challenge the 3-year rule that the NFL has, but because they're a private business and it's unionized, union law supersedes federal labor laws. Union laws supersede that because that's an agreement between two parties that you've agreed to. Because otherwise, if we didn't have that for the good of the players that are going to be drafted, if we didn't have that, you'd have 18-year-olds getting killed on the field. And I'm maybe exaggerating. But if you think the NBA, for the most part, is a shit show with kids that are immature when they make it to the NBA after a year, I mean, and you had, when kids were going, it just seemed like everybody thought out of high school with the NBA, oh, I'm just going to go pro. Well, I'm a Libra. We'll have to wait 2 more years because guess what? Or 1, depending on if it was a red. It was a red shirt, so he's got 1 more year that he's got to wait. So what they're doing is a protection for these kids that are eventually going to be part of that league. So, but these kids are, it's just that these kids are getting paid, and a lot of times it's like, well, do I go pro, or do I go for the bag in the pros, or do I go for the bag in college? Because if you go for the bag in the pros, you're going to get that second contract a little bit sooner, depending upon how you're drafted. But do you want the bag now while you're in college? So that's where we're going to start. That's what we're seeing right now is, do I get the bag? Do I get this bag? Do I get bag number one, or do I get bag number two? It's almost like it's almost like let's make a deal. But he's you know but Nico is uh, trying to get a team to play for. Might have to go down to one double A for a season, which will hurt his NIL. I don't even think one double A has NIL, but if they do, it's not much. But got to do something. So now, one guy who had probably a ton of NIL deals was Travis Hunter. Um, Now, Joe Shane, the Giants general manager, said Wednesday, um, if Travis Hunter gets drafted by the Giants third overall next week in the draft, he will get his wish and play both cornerback and wide receiver. Now, I don't know if that's a sign that they did. And I wish I made a note of who tweeted something like, something is going on that they're having a late um, pro workout, because I wish I saw who did that, because I could pull it up and all that, but I don't know who it was. But it is strange that this time you're doing these workouts as late as it is in the process. So that's what I'm trying to say. But so Joe Shane said, we're not afraid to play him on both sides of the ball. And if you remember me from last night, I was saying, because think about it. And I even talked about the tush push a couple of weeks ago. I said, you argue, oh, it's one hit away from a serious injury. Well, every play is one hit away from a serious injury. Whether it's a tush push or a route over the middle, or, I mean, my God, look at what happened to DeMar Hamlin a couple years ago. I mean, that was just a freak accident. But now Shane wouldn't specify whether New York would emphasize one position over the other if he lands with the team. Instead, he said the Giants are in a unique spot where they have three good receivers and are content with their secondary. That would give them options. Really, they have options? You're probably looking at another 4-12 year, 4-13, or wherever they went last year. Hunter made it clear earlier in the week that he would not be okay with the team telling him he would only play one side of the ball. He said, "Oh, I'm never playing football again." I think that I think you're going to see, and the thing is, karma can be a real bitch. He gets that major injury, and then all of a sudden he has to make that decision. Because guess what? You're going to realize that NFL is so much faster and more violent than a college game. But one NFL general manager told ESPN that Hunter could be a free agent. A Pro Bowl at either position. He is that talented and skilled at both. Now, the consensus, however, seems to be that his primary position in the league should be cornerback. So, and it may happen that in a year or two, maybe he even realizes, even though he wants to be on both sides of the ball, it may be better for his case to just stay on one side. Maybe he wakes up, or but and it also doesn't help that Dion was his college coach, because guess what? Dion played both ways. Now, granted, he didn't play all the time both ways, but he played occasionally on offense because he was so fast and elusive. But he mostly played defense. Shane knows it would be difficult for Hunter to pull off the double dip at the NFL level. There is both the physical and mental aspects, which could be challenging. And the thing is, one hit, like I said, one hit, next thing you know, you may be dead on the field and brought back to life. You may be whatever. You may have a serious leg injury. You may have a torn Achilles. You may have a torn ACL. And next thing you know, you're rehabbing for a year. But also remember, the Giants may not have a say in this issue, because they have to make sure Hunter's available. He is among the top options for the Cleveland Browns with the second overall pick. So you could see Travis Hunter at the Mistake by the Lake. Now, the question is, what would the Giants do if Hunter gets drafted by Cleveland? Now, they have to decide whether or not to bypass a quarterback with the number 3 pick. His college teammate Shedeur Sanders has been linked to the Giants throughout, and the process throughout the process he had a private workout with the team scheduled for Thursday in Boulder. So that Shedeur Sanders workout. Let me see if I can find that. I'm just checking real quick here, because it was a great post, and I just wish I knew who it was. And it just sucks I did not. I'm just checking a couple more links here real quick. Rich Eisen had that as a topic today, but it's a 10-minute video, and I'm not going to go through 10 minutes of video. Oh, well. Oh, well. I wish I made a note of who that chairman. Welcome in. The only Pleasant Phillies fan I know. The last two nights I have not been pleasant watching the Phillies game. Not because the Phillies won yesterday and lost tonight. I played a single game parlay tonight. Went 3 out of 4. Last night I had a four-part parlay. 4 different guys to get a base hit. 3 of them got them. So guess what? I just have bad luck right now. But seriously, gotta love chairman. But Shane said, if there's a blue chip generation talent that's available, you don't pass on that type of player, whether it's a quarterback or any other player. So they may still draft Sanders, but the Giants are going to make um, they're going to do a last minute workout. Whether they end up doing anything, we'll see. But um, but the one thing I will say is, um, you know, when the draft when the draft goes off next Thursday, the first round, I'm gonna be waiting here all day. Whoop de do. Yeah. Haha, Dallas, you suck. Haha. Detroit, what are you thinking? You know, or ooh, I like that pick for Detroit. Or I like that, and oh, I really wanted that guy, something like that. Then you get to the end of the night, it's finally the Eagles pick, and Howie Roseman will probably trade down. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just playing around with you guys. Um, but you know, it is what it is. So, one final story here, and this will get Chairman's attention here because he is a Braves fan. Spencer Strider made his first start, and I said this to a couple of people. I think I may have even said it on here. Even with the Braves starting out 0-7 and that stat that no team that has started out 0-7 has made the playoffs. Most of the times when a team's going 0-7, they've been a total shit team, or it was a good team that started off bad. That they only had their only option to get in the playoffs was to win their division, or even win the American or National League. Because pre 1969, there was only two teams that made the playoffs. Now you had 12. But now you had 12 teams that get in, and with the fact that there's two different ways that you can get into the playoffs. You can either win your division, or you can be one of those three teams that are the best of the rest. That 0-7 may not be a bad thing, but it is I mean, because the season 162 games, it isn't like you're in a 17 game season, you start off 0-5. It's like 0-5, oh shit, time to fire the coach. You go 0-7, it's like, all right, guys, we still got 155. Yeah, I know we're injured, we're this, we're that, but you got Acuna out, you got other guys that are out. Spencer Strider came back. That's the first major piece that came back. I might be missing a guy here or there. That's fine. But the one thing I did say to at least a couple of people, just because the Braves are 0-7, I wouldn't write them off. Now, will I be wrong? Probably. They may make the playoffs because guess what? All you really need to be in contention for at least a wild card is about 85 wins. But the thing is, you really shouldn't put a number on what you need to be a wild card because every year is different. Some years you may have three teams, for example, in the National League West that are going to win 90, 95 games. It happens. I mean that one year the Cubs, I think it was 2016 or maybe 2015. The two wildcard teams had like 95, 96 wins, and then that first team that was the top team that didn't make the playoffs as a wild card had like 85, if that. Sometimes you have these years where the six teams are locked in, even though you don't know what order they're going to be or who plays who. But some years you get that number goes higher. Sometimes that goes lower. I played a season of out of the park baseball a couple years ago. One of the like the 24 game I think it was, and I played a full season. I got a team in as a wild card with a losing record, and we may see that in real life Major League Baseball. Who knows? But we probably won't with the fact that if you have a team like the Chicago White Sox who lose 123 games or whatever they lost last year, 122. Who knows? It may be 125, maybe 130, or it may just be that they start winning. But the thing is, all those losses they redistribute towards the top part of the standings, and that middle ground that you see, you're going to see that okay, well, since this team is 40 and 122, okay, we're now going to see instead of 16 teams with records of 500 or higher, it's now 19, it's now 20. It's just the way the wins and losses distribute throughout the standings. And when you have 2 3 teams with 100 plus losses, it really it really gets away from the mediocrity, if that's such a word, the mediocrity that most leagues are trying to get with salary caps and stuff like that. But I wouldn't sleep on the Braves. And it's only April 16th, even though they lost today. But they're starting to get their pieces back. And Acuna's going to be back soon. I'm sure there's other guys that are injured. I don't know who they are off the top of my head because I didn't look into that too much. But um, I just think that I wouldn't write off this team. I really do. But um, but Spencer Strider made his first appearance in 376 days because of Tommy John surgery. He struck out 5, walked 1, and hit a batter in the 3-1 loss. He threw 97 pitches, 58 for strikes. So, for those that weren't in the know of what he was doing in his rehab and everything else, you look at that 97 pitches, you're like, holy shit. But I think that they had the luxury of getting him ready, you know, side field stuff at spring training, a bunch of B games, as they call them, where they're not actually spring training games, but they're actually games that actually help them out to get to the tourney and all that, get them ready for the regular season. Like, for example, um, even though it wasn't as major as an injury as Spencer Strider's UCL injury, Ranger Suarez last week pitched in Clearwater, and the only reason why I knew about that was because Jason Beam, who we follow each other um, on X, he's the racetrack announcer for Tampa Bay Downs and Colonial Downs, and I also met him at Parks the one time, and um, yeah, he's a big baseball fan. He used to play baseball growing up, played high school ball as well. Um, One of his hobbies, because he's in the Tampa Bay area right now, he can go to whatever minor league game in the Tampa Bay area on one of his off days from when he has not a non-school night with baseball, with a baseball game. So you can see, I mean, because I think he lives in Clearwater, so you can see the Clearwater Threshers, the Tampa Tarpons, even though they're on a backfield now. Um, Bradenton, Dunedin, a couple more, possibly that I'm forgetting, but um, so Spencer Strider. I mean, I didn't see, I wasn't really paying attention because also he's not on my fantasy team as either. So, um, but 97 pitches, obviously they were getting him ready without the spotlight on him. They had him going. They had him working. Had him rehabbing the minor league, the spring training facility, minor leagues, whatever. But Chris Bassett struck out a season high 10 batters. He allowed 3 hits. Toronto set a single game 9 inning record with 19 strikeouts. Bassett lowered his ERA to 0.77 after 4 starts. Um, um, and Strider kept it in perspective when Brian Schnicker immediately replaced Strider with Dylan Lee after he walked Anthony Santander. I think it was in the sixth inning. Whenever he got pulled, you know, my job isn't to come back and have a moment and all that. That's not how I look at it. I'm here to help the team, and that's the right attitude. Um, it isn't about April and being a hero. October is when you're the hero, and also 6 months later, God willing, his arm's still okay. He can actually be a hero type pitcher. But right now, it's even though you're going to do your job and you're confident in the elbow staying put, you do want to make sure you have that ready to go. So Schnicker said it's good to have him back. I think as he's out there, he's going to get stronger. He's got some moxie about him and competitiveness. He's going to be fine. I agree with that. And it may be because he had that later start this year, maybe that helps him in September and October when, let's say, the Braves make a run and somehow make the playoffs. But now the Braves are 5-13 right now. They've gone 5-6 after starting 0-7, and they've yet to win back-to-back games. They're 2-11 on the road. They had that horrific trip out west where they had the misfortune of playing the Padres, who haven't lost a game at home yet this year. They also played the Dodgers, so they played the top two teams in the division. They got that trip out of the way, but a lot of times you get a win or two when sometimes you get lucky and you get a win. Well, they couldn't do anything on that road trip, and it's going to be fine. But there's a note here. Strider struck out 13 in 5 and a third innings in a dominant rehab start last Thursday at AAA, allowing 1 run and 3 hits. He threw 90 pitches, 62 for strikes, and reached 97 on his fastball. So he actually, maybe he was doing some backfield work, B game stuff to get ready, and then it's like, okay, well, now since we're up north, eventually we're going to get you a start in a minor league game, and so it's all part of the plan to get him back. And I'm telling you, do not count the Braves out. So what if they're 5-12, 5-13 right now? The Braves team is talented, and just because they got a tough start, it doesn't mean that they can't make it up, because guess what? Everybody plays everybody, and they are going to be fine towards the middle to end of the year. And don't be surprised if they pull off an upset or two. Well, I shouldn't say it like that because this isn't college football. But don't be surprised if they work their way back up in the race because, now granted, they're 6 games behind the Mets right now. But, things even out in the long run because they're going to play Colorado eventually, who's 3-14. They're eventually going to play the Athletics, who the Mets played already. Athletics are 7-10. They're going to play the White Sox, who are 4-12 right now. You're going to play these bad teams, and like I always tell you, even if they're good in terms of a win-loss record, it's about catching teams at the right time. Like, for example, the Dodgers came to Philly. Philly was so far this year, early on. Dodgers came in after going 8-0 to start the season. They won 2 games in Japan. They swept the Braves. It was 8-0. So instead, they came here. It was a cold night and everything else. They lose a game. You're going to lose games in baseball. It's just the way the sport is made. But it is what it is. So I just want to remind you that Saturday will be another edition of Also Eligible. I will be live at 10 a.m. on the Bleacher Brothers channels. Let me go back over here. And I spammed in the, well, spam ain't the right word, but um, if you're watching on Twitch, that's why you should be on Twitch, because I can do things like that. Even though it gives me the skull head or whatever emoji that's supposed to be on the EVMux program I use. You know, um, I'm live every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. It looks like I'm doing Oaklawn this weekend, as the Triple Crown Trail has the prep races have ended. There was some news today. Owen Almighty, whose connection said, "Oh, we're not running in the Derby." Well, now they're running in the Derby again, so they will be running in the Derby. So he rejoins the field. I don't think he's got a shot because I don't think he can go a mile and a quarter. Um, and next Saturday, the 26th, the field will be announced. Um, so, and probably what I'm going to do on Friday, one of the things I planned that's not apartment related is I'm going to get caught up with everything um, with the field of 20 and the also eligibles to give you guys a background of each of the horses here as they uh, attempt to run under the spires here for the Run for the Roses the following Saturday, May 3rd. Um, so so we'll see what happens with that there. Um, so that'll be it for the show, and it's going to be a quick one. So I do appreciate everybody who's watching, Chairman for stopping by, and everybody who's been watching on X, on YouTube, and on um, um, YouTube, X YouTube, and on Twitch. What I'm going to do is those that are on um, those that are watching on Twitch, and this is why you should go on Twitch because I can do stuff like this. Those on Twitch, we are going to Action Lab. So I'm going to raid out to them, and we'll do it live tomorrow. And I'll get you ready for the weekend. So they are picking their NBA and NHL brackets right now, and they are previewing the NFL draft as well. We'll do it live with you guys tomorrow night. Action Lab is next, and thank you all for joining me tonight. I'll see you in the winner's circle, and hopefully we can get some more winners as well with my articles tomorrow on BleacherBrothers.com. So thank you all for joining me. BleacherBrothers.com for all your sports needs. Off we go to Action Labs. Have a great night, everybody.